My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual. This man in the late 90s and early 2000s absolutely turned the NSL and the A-League inside out and upside down. So his record speaks for itself. None other than Johnny Warren medalist in 2005-2006 season. He earned a bunch of other awards in Perth Glory, including their 2 championship winning sides in the 2002-2003 year and 2003-2004, the being the double. The great Bobby Despotovski. Thank you very much, Bobby, for joining us.
Thanks, Ash.
So, Bobby, tell us how you fell in love with our great game.
Oh, look, I grew up in ex Yugoslavia in Serbia, and obviously the number one sport over there was football. That's all we sort of had. A lot of people played basketball and handball as well, and but I played handball for about 4 years, coincide with soccer in the early days. But I think the football took dominance probably when I was about 13, 14 years of age, and I concentrate more on football rather than any other sport, which I still played sort of recreational. With my friends and stuff like that, but ever since I was 7 years of age, I fell in love with the game. Going to the stadiums and watched all the sort of a generation, even my father playing, and his generation of men playing, and I just loved it. I loved the whole concept of football being, uniting people and being a very dominant sport in Europe.
And so you have an interesting story because you were born here in Australia, but as a young boy, your parents took you back to Pancevo. I've got relatives that still live in Pancevo. So tell us what it was like growing up there out in the outskirts of Belgrade.
Yeah, look, you know what? I was 9 months old baby when my mom took me back to Pancevo, and then growing up there was very happy memories. It's the country was united at that stage, and everybody was living happy life. It's the kids could grow up very, very freely. It was a very, very free country, and obviously all that changed in sort of early 90s. But my childhood was very, very happy one, and we just concentrate as a kid. We just concentrate on schooling. That was the priority for all of us. And obviously the sport.
Okay.
That was 2 biggest things that our parents installed in us, that you're not going to play sport unless you go into school and you get your grades good and stuff like that. And from my early childhood, I remember playing for one of the clubs, and my parents never used to go to school. My actually coaches did. So if my grades were not good enough, then I have been stopped training until the grades improve. So those are the early sort of obviously at that time as a kids we hated that, but as an adult now and I have children on my own, I think that was the very, very right sort of approach from those older generation of coaches that we had, because the first of all that they installed in us is that only 1% of the people in the professional sport making it living. So you needed to look in the mirror and say what separates you from the 99% of the population. So obviously at that time we all said, look, okay, you know what, maybe we have talent to play, but it's a lot of luck and a lot of right things have to be in the right place for you to succeed. So we concentrate on school, and like he used to always say, only one bad injury away from you being nobody.
Yep.
So we took that very, very seriously, and I remember the whole generation of those kids that played with me in that junior club made some kind of a living out of the sport, but they all had their diplomas finishing the schools.
Fantastic.
Which was very, very good and pleasing to hear.
And your first junior club, what was the name of that club?
It's Dinamo Pancevo, my junior club. Obviously, as a young junior, was Bratstvo i Jedinstvo in Glogonj, which is 20 kilometers outside of Pancevo. That's where I grew up, and that's where majority of my family live. It's a small town. It's about 5,000 people in there, but it's close enough to Pancevo that, especially in the high school, we all went there and stuff like that. And then we started sort of a major club was Dinamo Pancevo.
Near and around Belgrade, obviously, there's a couple of big teams. You know, you either barrack for Red Star or Partizan. The town is typically split down the lines there of those two big clubs. Which team did you gravitate to?
I was the Red Star supporter all the time. We always gone to the games and stuff like that, and I still remember when I was in high school, I skipped school to go and watch the game. And obviously, as the camera was going around the ground, I was sort of captured on the camera, and unfortunately, my father was at home watching that. And then when I got home, he asked me how school was, and I said, "Look, yeah, it was great." And then he showed me the footage of it, and obviously, I got a belting.
And you, as a young boy, you got the opportunity to move across and obviously be in amongst the group in that club. Was that a big thing for you? Now you're playing in the streets with your friends, and the next thing you know, you're going to these games, and now you're involved in a football factory. You know, the ex-Yugoslavia, whether it's Red Star, Dinamo Zagreb, or any one of these former Yugoslav states, now fantastic football factories. What was the competition like and the feeling when you're in amongst those boys playing as a young boy for Red Star?
Yeah, look, you know what? It was a cutthroat. It was a cutthroat. There was 20 million people, and everybody wanted to play football. You know, and not only the young boys, but the families and fathers and mothers and everybody was sort of wanting their sons to play football. It was a number one sport. It was well paid as well, and you know, it was cutthroat. It's practically you have to be best of the best to survive, and only best were surviving. You know, it was not. You know, at that time, probably political correctness wasn't at the highest level and stuff like that. But you know what? I think that we were lucky because we were very, very resilient. We were not, taking no for sort of an answer. We would work very, very hard to rectify all the problems and everything, all the inputs that the coaches are sort of giving us. We were not taking it as a negative. We were taking it sort of as a motivation to improve. And that was installed in us from the previous sort of from the coaches that era was very, very hard and harsh. You know, they were not sugarcoat anything they meant to say to us. You know what I mean? It's like if it's black and white, it's black and white. It can't be gray.
Yeah.
So it's either good or bad. And you know, I remember throughout my generation of sort of friends that we went through, they all did something, and they all sort of respect that kind of development that we received from these coaches. And like you said yourself, Sasha, that was the factory for. So you know how many best footballers come from that country, and regardless if it's you know, on the Serbian side or Croatian side or Bosnian side or whatever the side that you on, that was one factory that the players were coming from.
Yeah.
And you know, historically, they produce some of the best footballers in the world.
Yes, definitely. And obviously that would have been a really good breeding ground for you later in your life, and what that sort of work ethic is. So tell me, how did you make your first senior debut? What was the makeup? How old were you when you ended up playing getting your first senior game?
I think I was 17 from my memory, and it was a little bit by default as well. Obviously, some of the older players that at Pancevo got injured during the week training and stuff like that. And I still remember, I think it was a cup game. I'm not sure who did we play against in the cup game, because it's similar like in here in the old Yugoslav Cup. There was the lower clubs that play against the top clubs and stuff like that. And obviously at that time Dinamo was in the second division, so we played against some of the oppositions that are local, from the towns around Pancevo and stuff like that, so they don't have to travel that far. And I remember being thrown in there, and it was sort of a rude awakening to play with the senior players, where there is no tolerance for any mistakes. So you're going from juniors where the tolerance for mistakes is much greater, and the coaches sort of allow you to make a mistake so you can learn, where you're going next week into the first team environment, and practically there is no tolerance for the mistakes, because if you actually make a mistake and something happens and you consider the goal, it's consequences for that. So it was very, very sort of a sobering experience, because straight away you're going from being free to being tense.
Yeah, you got responsibilities now. Yep.
Correct. So you need to learn, and to be honest, that actually made me grow up much quicker as a footballer. And I think that may be what Australian football now missing here, because all the kids are playing against best kids. But wait a minute, when the 34-year-old scream at the 17-year-old that made a mistake, you shit yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're missing. And you know what, the golden generation of Australian football with Viduka and all of those, Harry Kewells and all of those players that come through, they experienced that going through the early 90s in the youth system in Australia, because we did have that. And I remember in 1994 I was at Heidelberg, and we played against some of the players that actually, senior players that got injured, going through the youth system to get match fit to go. And you can use 3, 4, 5 players in there.
Yes.
So it was very, very good for the player development as well.
Yes, the older system, the youth team was used as almost like the recovery zone for you to actually get back into the first team. If you needed to get match fitness, go and serve 1 or 2 weeks in that league, and then the rest of the boys were getting that experience. Yeah, interesting point. How did you? Obviously, the decision to come back to Australia. We've got issues now in Yugoslavia at that time. Was Australia the natural decision point?
Yeah, so I was in 1991. In 1990 I went to army, and obviously it was compulsory serving of army in old Yugoslavia. So I went in the peaceful time to army, and then sort of 6 months into it, it's all started to break down, and the war started raging and stuff like that. So when I come out, I think from my memory, I came out about September, October. And in 91 September, October, 92 in September, October, and 92 November, I was already back in Australia. So naturally, what happened is when I come out, obviously I was born in Perth, and by birth I was Australian citizen. I didn't have to go to army, but obviously at that time I didn't know that. Regardless of that, it served me that actually probably made me even more independent man, because you're away from your family for a long period of time and stuff. But yeah, I just got my passport. I went to Belgrade. I got my Australian passport, and practically on the 2nd of November 1992, I was out. I was straight to Perth, and I started new life here.
And you're playing in the top league, obviously in the top division there in the Perth League there. Tell us about that difference. Now, you've spent time in the army, so you've had time away from the football pitch, but now you're back on the football pitch. What was that like getting lacing up the boots every week, going out there and playing in the top division there?
It was refreshing because when you're going 12 months to army, you without football, obviously you're just training recreational day, and all of a sudden then you're on the plane, you come to Perth. Obviously, I didn't know anybody here, and I'll tell you a funny story about it. There is people that are waited for me at the airport. Obviously, they are long sort of a third or fourth generation cousins of mine that came with my father and mother here in 1970, and they were still here. So they sort of said, okay, we're going to take him in for a couple of weeks until he sort himself out, and then he can go on his own. But I never seen these people, and then they never saw me. So the how they could recognize me at the airport was I had an earring with a little cross.
Yeah.
So I said, look, okay, no problems. That's sort of they can recognize me by that. So everybody come out. Obviously, in the middle of the flight, I'm going, look, you know what? I'm going to take this earring off because you know what? They're going to probably think, who the hell is this kid with the earring and cross in? So I took it off. So we come out and I sit down, and funny enough, I sit right next to them, and I can hear that they talking in Slav. But at that time, the war was raging, so you don't know who is next to you.
Yeah.
So I said, look, I'm not going to ask any questions. Well, 3.5 hours later, everybody cleared the airport. It's only me and them left. So they're going, you are Bobby? Yes, I am. Let's go home.
Yeah, obviously you're there for a couple of years. You're tearing it up there in the top league there in Western Australia, and you get a call to come east side to Heidelberg. How did that come about?
The first call that I got was is when Stan Lazaridis went from Perth. Stan Lazaridis went to West Ham United. West Adelaide.
Yeah.
And he knew me from here because me and Stan played for exactly the same club at Floria Tetina. And he said to Raul Blanco at that time, coach of West Adelaide, to get me over for trial. Obviously, they got me on trial there. I went there and I stayed there for 7 days. I thought I did very well at trials. Even Adrian Santrak, who was then at that time assistant coach of West Adelaide, goes, you know what? I think we're going to offer you a contract, or you did very well and stuff like that. But obviously, Raul Blanco didn't like anybody recommending players until he finds them themselves. So I was let go, and I went back to Perth. And then I think Michael Urukalo was the coach of Heidelberg United. And, he was in Perth. He watched a couple of games that I played against Ollie Roos' team in 93, I believe, that they were sort of sorting themselves out for 94 Olympics, I believe. And or something like that. They had some kind of a tournament. And I remember we played against them here in Perth, and Urukalo watched me and said, look, you know what? Would you like to come over to Heidelberg? I said, yeah, why not? I'll go there on trial, and that was the funny experience in itself as well. So I land about 12 o'clock at night in Melbourne. President of Heidelberg United picks me up at the airport, takes me to the house. Obviously, the house does not have electricity, so somehow it goes okay. So I went into the bedroom. I sleep over that night. I got up next morning. Nobody came to see me next morning. I said, look, I have no idea where I am. I knew that I was in Heidelberg somewhere, but I had no idea how to find the ground. There was nothing explained to me.
Yeah.
So, okay, no worries. Nobody came to see me for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So I started going down the streets and stuff like that. And at that time, it wasn't smartphones or anything like that. It's like, and I came in. If you know across the road from Heidelberg United ground, there is the shopping center.
Yeah, the shopping center. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went into the shopping center to eat something after 3 days. So I just going around the shopping center, and accidentally I just come out of the door on the side where the Heidelberg United is. And I asked the people, I said, well, whose ground is that? They go, oh, yeah, Heidelberg. I'm going, okay, so I'm not too far from the ground, but nobody explained to me where I am.
Wow.
So I rocked up a training session, and Michael Irucalo going, where the hell have you been for 3 days?
Yeah.
So I'm going, Mike, nobody came to see me. I have no idea where I am, man. So that was my start at Heidelberg. You know, it was at that time, it was sort of a sobering experience because I wanted to leave. I just said, look, you know what, they're not professional enough. I said, look, I'm going back to Perth.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm talking to the family and they go, look, you know what, just give it a go.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, no problems. And then, you know, they later on during that year and year after, I think I can clearly say that they actually put my name on the map.
Absolutely. I think you tore it up there. You know, this is a time where, you know, the Nokia 3210, right?
Correct.
Right? So to give you an idea of what 1990 what was this like? Yeah, the Nokia 3210. The game on your phone is that snakes, right? So if you have a Nokia 3210, that's what you spend your whole day doing, trying to get that snake as big as possible. This shopping center that you're at, luckily it's a big shopping center. If you walked in a different exit, you wouldn't have seen the ground, right?
Correct.
And yeah, but definitely your time there at Heidelberg, because Heidelberg very much at that time was a club that needed to get, obviously, you know, think about the other big clubs in Melbourne, you know, your Melbourne Knights, your South Melbournes. It was a club that needed to look outside the box to get quality. And you absolutely tore it up there. You scored, I think, you almost scored as many goals as you played games there at your time at Heidelberg. So very much this is when us Melburnians started to understand the name of Bobby Despotovski. So very, very much. And I know the guys at Heidelberg still think very fondly of your time there, of what you did for that club. So but in between, didn't you do a stint out at Morwell? What the hell happened there?
So what happened? So 94-95 season of NSL, I played for Heidelberg, and I think I scored 9 goals in something like 12 games that I played.
Yeah.
And then obviously the league stopped or finished, and you know, because at that time, if you remember, nobody was full time; everybody was part time footballers. So I had to go back to Perth. So I went back to Floria Tatina, and all of a sudden I received a phone call from Morwell Falcons, where I had 2 good friends playing there in Scotty Miller, and Vince Matassa was there.
Yes.
So they go, look, would you entertain to come here, because we're thinking that John Markowski is leaving Morwell Falcons at that time, and they needed somebody as a sort of a midfield striker to fill those shoes. Okay, no problems. So I went there and trained with them and sort of a little trial. And they said, okay, we're happy with you to sign and stuff like that. And I still remember at that time when they gave me a number 10 shirt, which was consequently John Markowski's. And me being such a skinny boy, I put that shirt on and I'm going, Jesus, I'm going to drown in this. Obviously, John Markowski was the big lad, you know. And I started playing there. I didn't have many starts. I believe that I started only 1 game against Canberra, I believe. But I was a lot of times on the bench and off the bench coming and stuff like that. And I think that one game that I played against Canberra, I scored one goal. But that's I played that game because I think Warren Spink and Brian Botwell, I think they were with the Australian national team on the national duty. So, you know, they had to play some young kids and stuff like that. And I think I left after 12 weeks. I think I just said, look, you know what, this is not for me. I'm sorry, but. And then I jumped in the car and went straight back to Melbourne. And I believe at that time the Melbourne, Brunswick Juventus, Parramatta Melita, and Heidelberg got kicked out of the league for whatever reasons that David Hill could name, and they dropped straight into the NPL. And at that time, NPL wasn't starting, but obviously the Football Federation of Victoria decided, look, okay, we're going to now start that league earlier. I think it was January sometime when they started the league, and then I just played in the NPL.
Yep.
Or at that time was the first division or whatever it was called.
You know? Yeah, the highest division in Victoria, obviously.
Yeah.
So and like I said, you tore up that division.
We had a great team there. It was. I remember I scored 12 goals in 4 games.
Yeah.
First 4 games I scored 12 goals.
Yeah.
And it was some great players. Practically all the players that have played in the National League just stayed with the club and start in the in the division below. It was a great side.
Star-studded team. And so you obviously make a decision to return back home. We're talking about around 96.
95, 96. That season I finished with Heidelberg, and then 96, the Glory got introduced into the league.
Yeah.
And Gary Marocchian at that time, Roger Lefort, who was the CEO of the club, came over, and we negotiated a contract, and I decided after the grand final that I'm going to go back to Perth. Unfortunately, they made me sign the contract before the grand final, so I could not play the grand final.
Oh, wow.
So what happened is that we came to some kind of agreement, but I already left Melbourne. So Heidelberg flew me back for that grand final at Bob James Stadium. I believe it was Heidelberg and Altona 3-3, and we lost on the penalties, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate for the club and myself, but I had some good memories from Heidelberg and from Victoria as well. Many friends that lifelong friends now in Victoria.
Yeah, and Perth's now starting this club. I think the concept of Perth and the Glory was now the building blocks of what the teams in the A-League ended up becoming. This one team state. And if I think about the one thing that I remember about Perth, because I visited one game in Perth, and just the noise of that shed, but that the building of that club, everybody got involved. Tell the people that are listening, right? You guys were players, but is it true that you also literally helped, for lack of a better, I don't want to exaggerate, but build the club, like literally, like grab, if something needed to be done, you picked up the broom, you had to paint the wall. Tell me what was the era like?
Yeah, so the club got introduced, and obviously we used to train away from the ground. We used to never train at the ground, but then later stages of that first season, we started training at the ground behind the grandstand. So which is now consequently a car park. It used to be the park. So we used to train there, and obviously that old ground of NIB now that is known used to have, because it was the footy ground, used to have old wooden seats. It actually wasn't even like a seats. It's like benches.
Benches.
Yeah, and it was all painted in sort of a bluish color. Because the Royal East Perth Royals were playing there, so it was the royal color. Which just before the first season, we gone, okay, there is hell of a lot of paint in the changing room, and we all came to training, and we gone, okay, what is this? We got a busy bee. Well, what is busy bee? So all of us after training session, we had a shower and stuff for that, and every single one of us had one can of paint per 2 players, 2 brushes, off you go. Paint all the seats. And we did. We just painted the whole lot all around. And we had some great times. And there was there was Nick Tana helping, who's the owner of the club. There was the
Yes.
CEO. There was Gary Marocchi, who is the coach
Yeah.
at that time. Paul Afkos, the co-owner of the club as well. Their wives
And their families. Yeah.
children,
Yep.
everybody got involved, and we just did it all like it's nothing. It's like family helps family.
And this is how you build the club. Yeah, it's not just
Correct.
about what happens on a pitch with 11 boys standing there and tactics.
Correct.
A club is built by a brotherhood, a family of people getting together. And you think about all the teams that achieve success, what they'll say is, off the pitch, they were friends.
Yes.
They would do the extra mile. There becomes a unity in the dressing room that you're going to go in, that boy misses the 50-50, you're going to go in there and win it. And this is built over time, but those little events is what makes a club good. And I can see those busy bees maybe at the time would have seemed a bit strange, but later on paid off because it becomes part of your DNA. Fantastic.
100%. And you know what? It keeps you grounded. It keeps you present. It keeps you human. Now these days, the footballers are untouchables. You know what I mean? It's like, no, we can still walk down the street and people still remember your name and calling your name and stuff like that. It's great. We gave a lot of time to children hospitals, to shopping centers, to we had the reading months starting every year and exactly same time, where all of us going to, even including myself, going and reading to the kids. I can't even speak English, I go and read. And it was great because you know what? Later on, I become a father. My kids went to that school and they bring the book home and go, look, Dad, Jason Petkovic, and you signed this in 1997.
Oh, how cool is that?
You know what I mean? It's like they keep those books there and they present that to the kids, and kids can take them home and stuff. All my kids brought books home with, Scotty Miller signed, Matty Horsley signed, I don't know, Jason, myself, Andre Gumprecht, Vinko Buljubasic, all of it.
This is the point. Now, A-League clubs should listen to this. This is called outreach. All right. You want to talk about community outreach? This is how you build community outreach. Instead of isolating your players, you think about what you're doing. If you've got only 3,000, 4,000 fans, what you need to do. Okay.
Absolutely. And that was very important. That was the one thing that Nick Tana and the friends that started that club said all along. We are family and community club. So we need to reach out to community, and community will come out and support you. And that's exactly what we did. We knew that, we started with 5,000 free tickets, but it wasn't that you call in the club and get the free tickets. We the ones giving you the free tickets, the players. So we go into the shopping centers and give them out. We go into the local soccer clubs and give them out. We go into the promotions. We had 6 hours of promotions a week, which we must do.
Yep.
Look, put it this way, Sasha. Not many times that you do 6 hours. Sometimes you do 8 hours, but sometimes you do an hour.
Yeah, I got
it. But that was in your contract.
And this is the thing. Like now, if you think about it, I mean, I think there's times where not all players are like this. The many players today will go and spend plenty of time going and signing autographs and doing that outreach at the game and before I see it. But there's some, mate, 2 minutes after the game, they're in the shower. See you later. They're done. Okay, because there's this idea that I'm a professional now, right? And they forgot what it was like to be that kid on the street wanting.
And that's the one thing that we did have. We used to spend a half an hour, 45 minutes after the game, going around the ground, shake everybody's hands, take a selfies or photos or sign autographs or whatever that might be, that we need to do to actually get those kids and those fans closer to us, because we need them.
Yep.
As much as they want to come to the ground and watch us win and stuff, but we need them to push us to win.
Yep.
And we need 15,000 people or 18,000 people or whatever that might be.
And this is the thing, like you think about, you say like 15 and 18,000, but this is at a time that everybody else has got 2, 3, 5,000 people, right? So
correct.
The one thing that struck me, that one game that I went and watched, because at the time I was supporting South Melbourne, and I did an away trip to Perth, and listening to the crowd, you know, in that smaller ground where it's thinking, that shared, that active support, you're just like, oh my goodness, this is like a derby every week, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes a 12th man. So, but that built over time. You just didn't click your fingers and that, you know, 18,000 people appeared. But it's interesting, the hierarchy, the administration at Perth had this idea that, listen, we're going to actually reward the team, right? In case there's a if you get above a certain amount through the gate, there's going to be something in it for the boys as well. So
yeah, that was I believe that was the crowd bonus at that time. That's how they call it. So nobody, look, even the hierarchies at Perth, nobody believed what happened and how quickly it happened.
Yep.
So once we started, we're going, look, okay, we get 5, 6, 7,000 people. Okay, no problems. That's good, because that's a double what the Eastern States, clubs get that are existing since 1977. You know, your South Melbournes, your Marconis, your Sydney Olympics, and all of those clubs. So we're going, look, if we double 7,000, 8,000, no problems. Anything above that, let's give boys 25% of the cut.
Yeah.
So when the first game started, I don't know, 11,000 turned up, the second game, third game, fourth game, and we got a Christmas bonus, something like $5,000 or something like that at that time. Second year, they cut that. They're going, this is going to go crazy. No more crowd bonus. Now everybody's coming in regularly. No. But it was, it was... Also, that idea was great, you know, and we felt like footballers. We wanted to play for the fans. We found connection with the local communities, with all the fans, and it was a great times.
And obviously, you know, some other Perth boys in there. You talked about Scotty Miller, also a great servant of the club. How was your bond with Miller over this journey at Perth?
Look, we played against each other in the state league, because majority of those first couple of years of the boys are predominantly all the local boys. Apart from, I think, second year Vinko Buljubasic came over, and I think first year we had Gavin Wilkinson as a Kiwi international. He came over, he lived here, and he worked for the club as well. So I believe he was the only player that was the full-time employee of the club at that time. And rest of us, we just work 9 to 5 and then go to training session.
Yep.
So 5 times a week, and it wasn't hard at all. You know, it's now they're going, look, we need to do this, and you can't training and the loading and this and that. I just hate to see if somebody put a monitor on us and say, look, okay, go on the construction work for 9 hours and then come to training session with Gary Marocchi, who was a fitness freak.
Yep.
And go and run 15 kilometers in the training session, and somebody's going to complain about being tired. Nobody wanted to complain to be tired, because we wanted to play.
Yes.
That's the thing. You know, the first time in sort of our careers, we feel like a footballer is playing in front of 15,000 people. You know, nobody wanted to say, "Oh, my ankle hurts." No. Anything hurts? No, nothing hurts. You know, so it was.
This is the interesting thing, because when you say 15,000, these are 15,000 people from the city of Perth, right? It's not a derby. It's not. I mean, I've been to many Melbourne Knights, South Melbourne derbies, and they're fantastic. Yeah, you got 15,000 people, half and half, and screaming both sides. This is now 15,000 people supporting one team, right?
Correct.
It becomes like a cauldron. And I remember I think there was maybe 30 of us, 40 of us that traveled with South Melbourne that year, we felt like overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. I mean, we tried to sing whatever we could, but I mean, like,
Yeah, of course,
you got, I don't know, that shed there, they just intimidate the opposition. I could see that it became the 12th man. I really credit to what Perth did in that time. And
but you got 30 people, like you said, your friends coming over from Melbourne to sing, and then obviously you got 3,500 people in the shed that are predominantly English origin and missing the game, and they know how to chant. They know how to sing, how to drink, how to enjoy the game of football. That's the thing. You know, it was a great.
Intimidating is what the word is. And so you mentioned a good friend of mine, Vinko, came across. Bully Basic tried to do a job there at the back there at Perth, but you also had numerous other Socceroos that would come across. So just to name a few, you had Ernie Tapai, who spent a season there. You had John Markovsky come and do a stint. Con Butsianis also come and do a stint over at Perth. So it was definitely a destination, right? So it wasn't just like, you know, a lot of people from the Eastern Seaboard are going across to Perth to play.
Yeah, especially after second year when the Perth Glory decided, look, okay, now we got crowds. Now we can make people being full-time employees. So this is the first time that the whole, like 18 to 20 people become full-time straight away. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, even the people that are working full-time had a choice to say, look, okay, you're either going to be a footballer or you're going to be a worker, because you can't do the part-time. And obviously after the third year, obviously we had a little bit of a success. We started, you know, Gary Marocchi was replaced by Bernstenger. And then obviously we identified weaknesses in the team that we had, and all of a sudden we started to, you know, at that time, you know, early on, I think Ernie Tapai came over. I think Butsianis was a year later. A year later, but it was Troy Halpin come over. You know, Brad Maloney come over. You know, Damien Morey was looking to come over and stuff like that. So everything will start sort of shifting in that full-time professional environment when everybody's just playing football, nothing else.
What was Stange like as a coach? Obviously, we know his credentials, what he did historically. What was he like in the dressing room?
Look, you know what? As a football coach, he was very, very old, sort of a minded, motivation and stuff like that, old school. Not many times that he could actually break down the games and say, look, okay, this is the weaknesses and stuff like that. We had such a good team. We were breaking the teams down. We didn't need the coach. The coaching started coming into a play with us really when Mish Davray took over. Obviously a little bit more modern coach. He knew what he wanted. He corrected a couple of positions, introduced a couple of more players that we needed. And the biggest thing with us was that we were buying players who had a character. And this is the thing that a lot of clubs now in A-League don't have. They don't have a philosophies, first of all, because none of them, I don't know what they stand for. No idea. I mean, I know I can say categorically for Perth Glory, I have no idea what they're standing for now. I mean, we used to know that we're signing players on the certain criteria. Once you in the A-League or the NSL, you already have certain amount of talent. Otherwise, you will not be in there. So how are we signing the players? The number one criteria for us signing the players is the character. So if you don't have a character to fit into this team, we don't sign you. Doesn't matter how good you are.
That's interesting.
And we experienced that with a couple of players. You know, they came here, they stand a year and a bit, see you later, done. But they are great footballers.
Yes.
They play for the national teams, and I'm not going to mention any names, but
no, of course, yeah. But the character, so they didn't fit in with the ethos of what the club was about. I got it.
Correct. The
And,
family orientated. We are family.
Hmm.
We want to be all together. There is not going to be cliques. We are one unit.
Yep, got it.
It's as simple as that.
There's one player I want to talk about who went on to play Champions League, a young boy who then also went on to, could have played for Australia, but went on to play for Serbia, Erdic. So what was he like? Because obviously a product of the AIS and Perth Glory, went on to play for some fantastic clubs in Europe, Turkey, etc. What, as a young boy, how good was he in your time there? The couple of years that he was there in that squad.
Yeah, look, Ivan Erdic came to with his family. Obviously, emigrated here and went to Australian Institute of Sport to play. When he came to us, he started training with us, and you can see straight away explosive, how explosive he is, and how fast he is with the ball. Not necessarily with the ball, because he looked big,
stocky,
but he was extraordinary fast, and with the ball he was just going, and reminded me of Dejan Savicevic with the ball. You're just thinking that you got it, and he just touches it away. Touches and he goes, and it's always one step ahead of you. And I remember talking to Bernstein about him. When he came, he was 2 weeks trial and stuff like that. And I'm going, and I clearly said to him, "Look, we need to sign this boy. We need to sign this boy, because this boy can play football."
Yeah.
And he was a little bit hesitate.
Yeah.
But eventually he signed him. Eventually he signed him, and he was
It's and I know you were the type of player to look at young boys and say sign him, because I know a story of you saying to a coach in Melbourne, "Hey, listen, sign this boy." So I know that to be true first-hand experience through somebody that I know. So fantastic that you would do that. But I think when Perth really started to click is when you got probably one of your best forwards, and when Damien Murray came to the club, and then what you guys were able to do, because Murray was just like unbelievable. Like, I think he at one stage he held the record for the fastest goal ever scored in the history of the world. I think it was broken. But there was for many years he had that record, and he just knew where the goals were, right?
Yes.
What was it like, that partnership, you and him up front?
You see a lot of people saying about you had a telepathic understanding. It's nothing telepathically going on. Yeah. We play a hell of a lot of golf together.
Yep.
Me and Frogger, and yes. And what it is, every Friday we have a training session at 10 o'clock. We're working on certain things. And then we're going straight from there. We meet at Mount Lawley Golf Club, which both of us were member of. We go in there and we play 18 holes. And we just talk about the opposition.
There you go. Communication.
Correct.
So, interesting. So all these strike partnerships, get to know your other strike partner, spend time with them. Communication breeds understanding, and then I'm sure you would have had signals and talks, and what's going to happen when who's got the ball. All these things were pre-organized.
Correct.
But communication.
We straight away knew if the goal kick is going on from Jason Petkovic, he's going up for the header, and he's flicking it always on the side that is the bigger pitch. So what that means, if you're on the right-hand side of the pitch and the ball going to that side, you're flicking it on the left. And I automatically knew that I running from right-hand side of him to the left. Wow. And if I end up with the ball with his speed, he's automatically eliminated 3 defenders.
Yes.
I just needed to put it in front of him, and that's the goal.
Knock it through.
And our job is done.
Yeah. There you go.
It's stuff like that. We always, and I remember we knew that if Jason Petkovic grabs the ball from the free kick or from the corner direct,
with his hands.
I'm usually at halfway line. I'm coming short. He's not releasing until I turn and start running, so he pumps it right behind. We knew that pattern of play. He did. Look, you know what? Sometimes in 3 or 4 games we can't do it, but in the couple of games when he did it, Damian Mori just steps it in.
Yeah, got it.
So we always work on the certain things, and but it's just the communicating between each other. And later in the stages when I was coaching Sam Kerr, I was doing exactly the same for her. Yep. You need to talk to your striking partner. Doesn't matter who it is. You just need to direct them in the direction that is going to benefit you and them.
The interesting, because we're now, obviously you guys came close a time, but you ended up getting success. So was that that loss, that loss, that grand finals loss, was that probably the biggest sting in your career? What are some of the moments that you think, that one got away from me, we could have done better?
Yeah, later on, Sash, probably you thinking to yourself and say, look, you know what, you got 2 championships and whatnot, but you could have 3.
Yeah.
Obviously, we couldn't do anything about Ante Milicic's goal, fluke goal, left footer in the top corner from 40 yards.
Yeah.
When Sydney Olympic beat us, but the one that we lost against Wollongong 3-0 at half time.
What happened there? You guys went to water. I mean, was that like 2 games? If you could pick a game and say, listen, these 2 games are not played on the same day, right? And just watch a first half of a game and a second half of a game, you'd think there was 2 different that game would happen a year apart from each other. It was a game of absolutely. 2 halves. It was like ridiculous.
So the first half we had a direction. We knew what we wanted to do and everything else. And then we're leading 3-0. We're going into the changing room. And I clearly remember I was the last one coming into the changing rooms.
Yep.
Everybody's there. Mish Davra is there. Everybody's there. Bernstenger is missing.
Okay.
So Bernstenger never turned up in the changing room in the whole 15 minutes. He was doing interviews outside of the changing room. Nobody knew this. He was doing interviews outside of the changing rooms for whatever reason. I have no idea. And then we come out with no direction. I have no idea what we're doing. What are we closing the game down, or we going to score another 2 or 3 goals? Or no idea.
Okay.
And then the strange decision is, I'm coming off at 3-1. He's you're putting another striker on.
Yep.
And I'm going, you got Garrett Niven, our captain, who played 30 games that year without being substitute, on the bench. He didn't put him on.
Yeah, okay. So some strange decisions there. Okay.
Some very, very strange decisions there, Sasha. And it's, a lot of people, when I speak now, even publicly, when I say something like that, they're stunned. It's like, what? That he didn't turn up in the changing room? No, he didn't.
But okay. So, all right, but you played lots of games of football, okay?
Yep.
You've got leaders in the team. To me, that would mean, all right, I still play football. It doesn't matter what level. You'd say, okay, we're doing the same thing. We're going to go out there. We're going to play football, okay? So there's nothing. You would have the assistant that would have said something in the 15 minutes, okay? So let's go out and keep playing, right? And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. We try to do exactly the same like in the first half.
Okay.
Obviously, Wollongong with Theodoropoulos, they changed the system slightly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And we're going, okay, so now they overload the midfield. They're taking the chances up front. They're overloading the midfield, and we are actually losing the ball in the midfield straight away.
Yeah. Okay.
Instead of changing the striker for striker, if you change the striker for the midfield, you combat that. But you're still leading 3-1. You're closing the game down. Yeah. And you know what? From the professional football coach like that, who traveled the world, it was, later on, I'm thinking now that I am educated coach, you're going through the coaching courses and stuff like that, you're just thinking, wow.
Yeah, because at the end of that game, Theodoropoulos was like the masterstroke, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, he 100%. But you're saying that like now this is chess being played without opposition, maybe, right?
Correct. And you know what? Probably none of us felt good about that game until Liverpool beat AC Milan in Champions League. You know what I mean? Because it's exactly the same thing happened.
Yes.
And you're sitting there, and I remember watching this game, and I'm going, okay, if these professional footballers who earn millions and millions of dollars every week can do this, us plebs can be forgiven for that.
Yeah, that's true. That's the but obviously good for Wollongong as well, right? So there's always in football, there's winners and losers. This is part of our sport, and there's somebody who celebrates, there's other people who are crying. But 2002, 2003, it all comes together, right? And you guys are really just unstoppable. And even before that, but in those 2 years. So what do you think, what was the difference? What clicked and what changed?
It's those losses. Those losses just gave us, and I remember the first tackle was, I think, 4 minutes in from my memory. Ante Milicic had the ball on the left-hand side, sort of in line with our box, and I was tackling him. That lifted the whole team. Not everybody was doing extra. Everybody was doing two jobs. Everybody wanted to do, and exactly what you said, Sash. It's that family sort of. You missed the tackle. I'm gonna go and get it.
This is the thing. Doesn't matter what sport it is. You can almost sense the energy of a team who wants it more. And the team, when it comes to the finals, right? Football is not played on paper. Names on a team sheet. Football is played on grass, and the 11 boys or girls who want it more at that moment will win. It becomes an energy, a feeling. And sometimes you can sense it even in the crowd, and I'm sure you guys sense it on the pitch. You're winning that 50-50 ball that you shouldn't have won, and then somebody else is coming in to collect it, or that, that connection in the midfield where you're getting out of pockets where you shouldn't have, but you're out.
But even if you when you look at the goals that we scored in that game, you look at the goals and it's a pure determination goals. It's nothing was was sort of spectacular about these goals, and it's pure determination for somebody to go through three players and top hog that ball, go past the goalkeeper.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's that pure determination from the first minute that we started. Plus, we played Olympic, who the year before that, with spectacular goal from Ante Milicic in the top corner, snatches the 1-0 win. You know what I mean? So we had that extra sort of a motivation. You're not coming here ever again to win another game.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You did it there, in front of your home crowd, which obviously would have been extra special to do that job, because it was a bit of a spectacle, that the atmosphere, the build-up of the game. I'm sure that would have helped.
Definitely, and I remember how much pressure all the boys, including myself, felt, because we failed twice before. We failed year before that, 2 years before that, Wollongong, and we're going. And I remember doing the press conference, and I when I famously said, look, you know what, that little monkey on my back is turning into gorilla. Because it was that much pressure on us. If you fail third time, how the crowd is gonna react. So we were sort of thinking hell of a lot in advance for the game of football, rather than us at that particular moment. If that makes sense. We were talking about sustainability of football in Perth particular, because we're giving outlet to all Perth children that want to be a professional footballers, because we are the biggest team.
And that's the pathway. Think about any
Correct.
kid right now in the suburbs of in and around Perth. That's it. That's where you should be aiming to play.
And this is the thing that not many clubs in the A League now look at it that way. If you look at it that way, you have responsibility to football, not to yourself only and your club. You have responsibility to football as well. And we need to do more of those kind of responsibilities so the football can sustain itself and can be actually played for longer period of time.
This is the interesting point, because now we talk about people, players, and you see this merry-go-round of, a player playing one club, another club, another club, another club, another club, another club. You want somebody to kiss the jersey? Okay. Get the boy that was part of that junior community that sang in the terraces as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, that was part of that academy system, gets his first senior appearance and pays 4 or 5 years for their team. Don't worry, they're going to kiss the jersey. That's how it happens.
But this got lost in Australia. This is completely lost in Australia because they have 5 foreigners because they thought that the foreigners are going to bring money to the game because the television rights are going to be higher. And this is the thinking of owners. Typical owners who actually just thinking about the money, not the sport. Let's get 8 foreigners so we can sell the rights to the television and get the money for ourselves. They don't care about the academy. They don't care about anything else apart from that.
Okay.
And this is the sad story about it, because you know what? The money will dry out in Australian football.
Yeah. Well.
And what are you left with?
Yeah.
And we've seen this in NPL. NPL, and I've seen this in Perth. I'm not sure how it's now because I've been out of the NPL sort of system in Melbourne for a long time.
Yeah.
But in Perth is the major sponsor comes in with a lot of cash. They buy best players. They win the grand final. They are champions, but they neglect everything underneath.
Yep.
The sponsor moves on, doesn't want to be involved with football anymore. They now turn to youth to get some players in because they don't have money anymore.
Yep.
It's nothing there because you neglect that for 3 or 4 years while you're actually collecting your trophies.
Yeah, this is the thing. So can I say you've just typified what you've said in Perth is happening in Melbourne and it's happening in Sydney. Okay, so the same thing is happening.
The same thing, yeah.
The same thing. So there's no difference. Okay, you've just said the story of every club that's had success and then has dropped off. The sponsor leaves because their ego is satisfied because
correct.
The name is in the paper for that moment. They hold the trophy and then they're done, right? So
correct.
And the interesting thing is that owner then makes the decision. Okay, I'm going to go from. I know how I'm going to suffice that ego again. I'm going to drop 5 divisions or 4 divisions and I'm going to do it all again, right? Because I can do it with half the money. Because what my interest is the building success, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need those people in football, but there needs to be this mix. If you need to build a group, and I think the teams that have built legacy in you look at, let's say, the one thing about the Croatian community that's done this really well, they always have their players within the system. Okay.
Yes.
The Melbourne Knights and Sydney Croatia have done that, and to the point where they then become coaches of that side. Right. There was a recent article by Dukovnik, David Davudovic, about Sydney United, how good their system is. It's because the players played there the whole life, and then they go on to coach that team. Right.
Correct.
They're doing the same thing. So there's a culture of for lack of a better phrase, looking after your own boys. Okay. So, and I think now there was an interesting point about the Brisbane Roar A-League coach. He said, not just Australian talent, Queensland talent. So the mentality maybe this is creeping back in. I think this is the way forward because the money is drying up in Australia in the A-League, and we need to
Sasha, for Australian football, the best thing that ever happened last year, I'm sorry to say it, but it's COVID-19.
Yeah.
because he exposed every single club
Yep.
inability. And all of a sudden, the coach from Queensland saying, yes, Queensland talent.
Yep.
Now, last year, we had one WA Perth boy representing Perth Glory in A-League, in Alex Grant. Everybody else was foreigner.
Yep.
I mean,
outside.
Don't get me wrong, not foreigner, but outside of the outside of the state of WA.
But it should be 50%. It really should be 50% of the team.
I agree.
Has to be.
All of a sudden, Richie Garcia comes in, and all of a sudden we got a lot of young kids signing now contracts and stuff like that.
Yep.
Now the time becomes of essence to see how many months or how much time that Richard Garcia will be given to get those boys to the certain level.
Yeah.
And how much time is going to be given to him before he starts getting judged.
Well, this is the thing. This is the unfortunate thing about being a coach, and you would know this. You know, there's only two types of coaches: those ones who are getting hired and those ones who are getting fired. And you know, football is a results-driven game at that level. So you need 2 years. You need 2 years to blood those boys. That's what you need. You need to be given 40 to 50 games.
Correct.
To make a footballer.
And I often say, look, you know what? If you're giving these boys opportunity to play, you know, don't judge them. And this is the thing that we had at the Perth Glory Women when I became the coach. We had a 5-year plan that the majority of the WA girls will be playing for Perth Glory.
Wow.
And we were obviously unfortunately the COVID strike and stuff like that. And we had this was, I think, the 4th year. And we had majority of them. I was planning only to bring 2 foreigners.
Yep.
And the next year, which is the 5th year, would be completely 22 girls from WA playing. There would not be anybody from Eastern States. There would not be anybody from anywhere else.
Yep.
And we were very, very in line with that. Obviously, the COVID hit, and now they can't play. And
but this is how you get the girls to kiss the jersey. This is how it's done. This is how you build mentality of a club. So very poignant, wise words. So the time in the NSL finishes, and you get a call from a fairly decent club in the New South Wales Premier League to fly in and fly out every week to play football. I mean, what the hell is that?
Yeah, Bonnering come across and they said, look, you know what, would you like to play? John Turner was the coach.
Yeah.
Obviously, very well respected coach from Wollongong.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you know what, I cannot actually miss this opportunity to play for John Turner because I know him for a long time. I said, look, you know what, Bonnering, no problems, big club in the NPL in New South Wales. I said, look, okay, let's do it. And so we set up, you know, I'm training here with Inglewood United on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I jump on the flight in the morning of the Friday. I fly straight to New South Wales. They pick me up in the afternoon, and I'm going straight to training, and I play on Saturday, either 7 o'clock p.m. or 3 o'clock p.m. or whatever the games were scheduled. And then I sleep over there, and the Sunday morning I fly back to Perth.
Hilarious. So
and I think I played 8 games, and I scored about 8 or 9 goals that year for Bonnering.
Yeah. So the Serbian community there would have loved it. And then you get ready. Obviously, one of the players that did this transition between the old NSL and the new A League. Obviously, and then you're back on you know. I think were you one of the first people to be selected in that Perth Glory A-League side in terms of paperwork?
Yeah, look, I sort of retired from the NSL at that last grand final at Parramatta Stadium. And then, you know, once I decided to go to Bonnering and start playing, that sort of signal to Perth Glory that, okay, this old bastard is still ready to play. So they're going, look, you know what, they asked me just a simple question, you know, do you want to continue playing, or you want to be retired, or you want to play NPL? What do you want? I said, look, you know what, it's a new league. Let's see how this going on. And this 8 or 9 game stint at Bonnering actually prolonged my career.
Okay.
Because if I did nothing in that period of, I don't know, 12 to 15 months, especially at 34, 35 years of age,
you would have been done. Yeah.
You'll be gone. You'll be gone. But this sort of kept me on my toes. I was training 3 or 4 times, a week, flying, playing games. I still feel like a footballer. It's it was great. It was a great.
I'm sure a little bit of time in the medical room nursing those the aging body, or were you still heavy to go on the pitch?
I was still okay. I was sort of struggling a little bit with my back problem because of all the flying and stuff like that, because I was flying every week. when you play at Perth Glory, you play 1 week, you fly, the week after you stay at home.
Yeah.
But this 8 or 9 weeks was constantly just every week you flying and back and go and back and go. And I was struggling a little bit with my back, but nothing that couple of beers could fix.
Yeah, that's it. The interesting thing is, so injury on the park. No, it's the economy seat.
Correct.
That's giving me the problems. Okay, so fantastic. And you went on, obviously, to play for Perth in the A-League, and you would have seen that transition. The first year, obviously, the A-League is fairly new, but by the following season, it's starting to get a little bit more of an identity, people starting to feel each other out. Did you feel a difference of now? Because I think this idea of one team, one city idea was sort of modeled on what Perth did, and the one thing that they got right was, people came and watched. Okay, Sydney, Melbourne victory. We now have football. What we have in the A-League now, the one good thing is, you've got Western Sydney Wanderers and Sydney FC. You've got 40,000 people. You've got a game of in Melbourne victory. They're well supported. You have these big institutions, let's call it, right, of people support and new records being matched, like what we had in football in the 60s, where you had the migrant communities come out and support 10 and 20,000 people watch. These people are now going back to the football, and this will create a different energy. So, in a generation's time, who knows where football will be. But did you feel that football was becoming bigger in terms of the attendance?
Yeah, definitely. And the good thing about it is that everywhere you go, you feel like footballer. You go into Melbourne victory, there is 20,000 people there. It doesn't matter if it's, Perth Glory coming into town, big rivalry, or, Brisbane Roar coming into town, or Sydney, big blue derby, or whatever. It's always 20, 30,000 people, 25,000 people, 18,000 people. So that's, instead of everybody wanted to come to Perth to play because of that, now you got that on the other side and everywhere. And that was one good thing. Then after that year, I think the World Cup happens. 2006, and the A-League started sort of going up and up and up, and then 5th year it just stagnated there, and the drop starts happening. And I think that we missed opportunity to leverage off the World Cup, to leverage off everything that we created. We just, Australian football and Australian community in general, in football community is great to admire something. So we had a golden generation of Socceroos taking us to the World Cup, and we created great things, and then we're sitting down and we admire how they're playing and not worry about building the next generation of those to come through. It's exactly the same with Matildas now. Matildas are great, the 5th in the world or whatever. We're all sitting down, inclusive myself, and we're admiring that, instead of putting the hard yards to get the next generation of Sammy Kerr or Lisa Devana or, Mark Viduka, Harry Kuehl, Robbie Slater, whoever, we miss that boat. We only wake up when it's too late. And then we are 5 years behind.
Yep.
It's shame to see that the people at the highest level have no idea how to identify those mistakes.
Mm.
And it's very, very sad.
Yeah, we all have a part to play. This conversation is playing that part. I mean, we all need to just say it how it is, and so thank you for sharing those observations. I mean, you were at the coalface for many years. You were voted the W League Coach of the Year in 2016-17 season. So you're in the middle of it. I mean, so you know you you were part of that professional environment.
But you know what, Sasha? I said in 2017 what's going to happen with European leagues when they start, and how much Australian football, especially in the women's. I'm not talking about the men's now. I'm talking in the ladies' game. How much America and Australia will suffer when the everything that was talked about in 2016-17 in Europe will come into play at later stages of 2017, which the study found that every club in European football has to have a women's component into it.
Yeah.
And I even send the emails out to some of the officials at the FFA, voicing my concerns what is going to happen to Australian football when that is awakened. But because the people have no idea how to foresee that, because they never probably been in football, all of a sudden nothing got done. And I'm not saying that because I sent the email that they needed to act on it, but at least something needed to be done, at least to come out and recognize that, you know, Europe is going to get awakened.
Yep.
And they didn't understand how. So I explained to them that European football, it's very easy to put women's program in place because they have all the infrastructure that they need.
And the coaches and the
everything
mentality
is there.
And the supporters. I mean, so like the same
Sasha,
thing that...
everything is there. Everything is there. You have a clubs with a great facility, with the supporting staff. The easiest part for you is to allocate 1.5 million euros and buy the team.
Yep.
That's the easiest part.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got ready-made support.
We here don't have a facilities for starters. We don't have clubs for starters. We're practically going from ground to ground. Whoever allow us to training and play the games there with the lights, that's Australian football in general now.
And think about it, where, I mean, so economics drives the outcome, right? And so,
correct.
You know, if you've got a young daughter, right, you know, in a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, okay, and in 10 years' time, they're going to go playing for Borussia Dortmund or Chelsea
correct.
or Arsenal or Manchester United or Barcelona. This is where they're going to play, right, or want to play, right? And
100%.
This is there's no doubt why the vast majority of the Matildas are now have got contracts overseas. So that makes sense.
But we were the number 5 country in the world 3 years ago. And now, by the next World Cup, which is in Australia, I guarantee you, if you're going to have only 24 countries, would be touch and go for us to qualify. That's how much I am concerned about women's football.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing of what needs to happen in order to make that sustain. It's an interesting thing. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to win a World Cup. And when I say for us, you know, I think the men are so far away. You know, it's almost like another planet. For us to qualify and maybe get through a group stage would be, fantastic. But the women now have a real opportunity to progress and then potentially win it. They're in the top echelon of those teams, and they've beaten.
But when you look at for the women's football, and apart from Sam Kerr and maybe a couple of the others that are playing at top level football and stuff like that, I analyze the game for women and I'm looking at it. I'm just going through the midfield structure of women's Matildas, and I'm thinking that the top teams in Europe, probably 10 top teams in Europe, are much stronger than Matildas. America is much stronger. Japan is much stronger. China is coming up.
Yeah.
And we are nowhere to be seen because all of those countries have invested heavily in the women's football.
Yeah.
Where we don't invest. We want to win the league and don't worry about it. And that's why when I said that we're gonna change structure at Perth Glory was predominantly because we had 7 representatives in young Matildas and young Matildas. These kids needed to be given opportunity to play, and that's why we changed the whole culture about our sort of a representation at Perth Glory, because these kids need to play.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the result. Don't worry about everything. And it's on the end of the day, it's how we sell that to the owners of the club. If the owner of the club wants the result now, allocate me $300,000 in funds and you win the league tomorrow. If you want to sustain this for the longer period of time, where the kids from WA are going to play, you're going to have 1,000 people at the games, and you're going to be sort of represented for next 10 to 15 years of these kids' lives, you need to do this now. So sacrifice a little bit of success now for the long-term success, practically, of the club.
Yeah, wise words. Obviously, you were at the coalface, so thank you for your contribution to the W League in Australia. Obviously, you were involved there in Perth Glory for a long time. I want to wind back a bit because I think your best year in 2002, you got a couple of appearances for the Socceroos, but I think probably your best year was the year before.
Correct.
But anyway, these things sort of happened, or you don't know when you're going to get selected. When you get selected, you go. What was it like for listening to the national anthem and standing there with the boys and wearing the green and gold?
Well, look, you know what? It's ultimate. That's why you're playing football, and then you're playing football to win the games. Consequently, you win more matches, then you win the championship, then you play for your club, you're doing well, and then you go and represent your country. So I think that's a sort of a natural progression for footballer, and everybody wants to do that. So once that came about, I was very proud. I was very proud of my achievements with the Perth Glory. We were scoring goals, and me and Damien Morey, and then all of a sudden now we're going to go and represent the country. And it was great. It was a great, I didn't understand at first that you're going to leave for 2 weeks in hotel and you're going to go and training twice a day and stuff like that. I didn't understand that can be actually sustainable, because it was quite. We went straight from the league straight into the sort of a hotel, I think in Parramatta somewhere, and then we did a hard sort of a yuck for probably about 10 days to get prepared for that tournament. And at that time, obviously, there is no GPS, there is no loading, you either can or cannot. It's as simple as that. And this is where probably my upbringing with those old sort of coaches gave me advantage, because you know what? It doesn't really matter what hurts. It doesn't hurt.
Yes.
Because you just wanted to be out on the park, because you never know when this opportunity is going to be taken away from you.
Yeah. So
the
whole body's hurting, but make sure Bobby Turchay, just make sure you run.
Nothing hurts.
Yes.
Nothing hurts. Yes. So it was great experience with, and you know what? You're playing with the best players in Australia.
Yeah.
You're amongst the best players that represented, country, the clubs, Mehmed Jurakovic was there, Steve Horvath was there on the back, Ivan Milanovic. It's a lot of players there that I respected as a footballer, and all of a sudden you're in exactly the same team, you're in exactly the same hotel as them, and it it was a great experience.
Yeah, fantastic. And so thank you very much for your contribution to Australian football. You have delighted crowds. You scored in the NSL and A-League, well over 100 goals. Can I say, if you were to talk to the young player now listening, what would be your advice to them?
Just to enjoy the game. Nobody starts this game knowing where he's going to finish. Nobody. And this is not only from me, this is from the professionals that play at the highest levels, Real Madrid, Juventuses, and whatever you want to call it. They all start the game as a young kid enjoying the game. And if you enjoy the game, nothing is going to be too hard. Your enjoyment will transfer. Consequence of your enjoyment is going to be you playing well, you represent the teams, you represented into the country. Consequence of that is that you're going to be winning games, and consequence of that will be you're going to end up where you sort of are never planned to end up in the first place, which is maybe you go into money and millions of dollars of transfer fees and whatever that might be. But everything starts with the enjoyment of the game, and if the people enjoy the game and play it for the right reasons, everything else is a consequence of that.
Oh, fantastic. So it's been an absolute pleasure recapping your time in the game, Bobby. Like I said, you delighted crowds, very much delighted crowds, and sometimes antagonize crowds, but there's beautiful things that you did on the football pitch, and we really want to thank you for your contribution to Australian football. It's been an absolute honor today speaking with you.
Thanks, Ash. Thanks for the invite as well. Thank you.